Hi guys, in this video I want to show you a couple things that you might encounter when you're dealing with matrices. Let's say you want to create a matrix that is, three rows and or three columns and five rows. So you could do that like this, using the matrix function and use the parameters n, col, and row. That'll give you three columns and five rows. But the data passing in, before we left this blank, so with NA because that's the default value. Now add some data. And let's see what happens when we print this out, this matrix. It's going to have 15 numbers in it. But what numbers are they and where are they going to be? That's going to be the thing we want to look at. So let's press Control Enter. And here you can see you have 15 numbers, 1 through 5 in each column. So basically took your data and filled it like this, right, which we know that's the way. But now let's add another piece of data to our vector here. So now I have six numbers, and they have to fill 50 spots. And this is going to look a little bit different, and we're going to get a warning. So here's our warning. It says the length of data is not a submultiple or multiple of the number of rows, 5. And then we have a matrix, and it fills the matrix like this down column. And then because I had one more number, it went to the next column. So there's my full set of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it's repeating again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. So that is the default functionality of the matrix function. And this warning is telling you that something's a little weird here. You passed in a data that has a length that's not equal to the number of rows. And that's all I wanted to point out, is that if you see this error, that's what it means, is that you have overlapping rows here. Your data's on both, just not overlapping rows. You have no data in a column. If I change this to, if I 6, and I run this again, error. The error is going to go away because now the length of my data is equal to the number of rows, right? So you just want to be aware of that. And that's what that error is. You might see that. The other thing I want to point out is, let's say I deal with this problem again, where I have one vector that has 3 numbers in it and another vector that has 2 numbers in it, and then I combine them using the cbind function, and I put it into this mat1 matrix. And our bind function is the same thing, only to do it row-wise, a row-wise combination. And now if I run this code, we're going to see those again, not errors, warnings. And remember my first matrix here, it has 1, 4, 5, and then it's combining that with 3, 2 into columns. And look what happens. You get the similar type of warning. And it says that because it's repeating this 3, 2 again, because the number of rows is not a multiple of the vector length. Basically what's going on is you're saying combine this vector and combine this vector into columns, but because there's not enough of this vector, it's going to repeat it. So you see 3, 2 and then 3 down here. That's trying to repeat this 3, 2 vector again to fill out the matrix completely. And the same thing with the row bind. Here's 1, 4, 5 and then 3, 2, and this 3 right here is a repetition of the first row of that first vector again, that 3, 2 vector. And then what about if we take those matrices, mat1 and mat2, and we try to combine them into a bigger matrix? What's important to note here is that this matrix is 3 rows, 2 columns, and this matrix is 2 rows and 3 columns. So they have a different number of rows and a different number of columns. And when you try to combine matrices that have a different number of rows, columns, when you use rbind, you get an error. It says error in rbind mat2, the number of columns of matrices must match. So there's an error in this function here, and the output looks a little strange. You're trying to say, put this matrix 2 underneath this matrix, but it can't do that because they don't have the same number of columns. And similarly, if you try to use cbind on that, you're saying put matrix 1 next to matrix 2, like right to the right of it. And it can't do that either, so you get this error in cbind. The number of rows must match. So you just want to be aware of these issues. If you want this to work properly without errors, the best thing to do is to make sure that when you're combining vectors, they have length. That means my matrices, my output. Let's take a look at that. Here's my matrix 1 right here, and matrix 2. There's warnings, everything looks cool. When I go to combine these, though, it's still going to give me an error. Let me do that again. It says error here because I don't have the right columns, right? But what I can do here is, I could transpose this matrix by using the T function to flip it around, and when I read it works fine. So the transpose function took matrix 1, which looks like this, 1, 4, 5, 3, 2, 6, and it transposed it into rows. So I have 1, 4, 5, 3, 2, 6. And there you see 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 3, 2, 6. That's where I transposed matrix 1. And matrix 2 is 1, 4, 5, 6, you see here. Alright, here's transposed matrix 2. All I want to point out to you in this video is that you want to beware of the dimensions whenever you're working with matrices. And just so you see what that transpose did, I'm just going to print it out for you. Let me clear data below. This is my map 1. When I transpose it using this T function, it now becomes this. So it takes the columns and makes them rows. So here's the column, it makes it the first row. Here's the second column, it makes it the second row. That's all the transpose does. And when I do that, I'm then able to combine it column-wise or row-wise with mat2, because mat2 took X, Y, and made them into rows. So here we can do this, and now you'll see something that looks like this: 1, 4, 5, 3, 6, 1, 5, 3, 2, 6. So I'm putting the first matrix on top and the second matrix below using this rbind, versus the cbind puts the first matrix on the left and the second matrix on the right. And I don't get any errors. Here's the first matrix on the left, here's the second matrix on the right. And I don't get any errors because the number of my columns match when you use, or number of my rows match when you use column bind. So be aware of that. You can download this file off my website, and you could play around with it to get your head around some of this stuff. The main idea, though, is play around with cbind and rbind, and you'll see that dimensions are an issue. And always take a look at your matrices or your data to make sure it's doing what you want it to do. Okay.